My friends, I thought we'd do something just a little bit different today. And first, let's check this out. You like my Bruce Lee shirt? Let me see if I can show you the back. Got some cool stuff. Anyways, this is from a company called Roots of Fight. Great shirt, just got it. And I thought we would do something different because, as you know, I flew back to the United States last week and I'm in my old childhood bedroom and I was going through some things and I found this, an old martial arts magazine from 1994. And I thought we'd go over this, reminisce on a few things, talk about some things that will either entertain you, maybe help you out in life even. And it's important to have heroes in life, especially for kids. Even as an adult though, even though I'm much more realistic about things, it's so important to have heroes, to have other guys you can kind of look up to for some kind of inspiration. Now, no one's perfect unless maybe you're talking about Jesus Christ, of course, but this guy right here, he was a big hero of mine growing up, even though you might say, well, aren't you a little bit young for that? Because obviously Bruce Lee died many years before I was even born, but in the 90s, I discovered him through my father, who's also a Bruce Lee fan. My dad did martial arts of all various kinds for many years. He had Bruce Lee books and stuff, and that's really how I discovered him. But so many people see this guy, including myself when I was a youngster, as kind of a Jesus-type figure. And what I mean by that is they have something so special about him, this special charisma, that it's almost like they could be a religious figure, the way they inspire people. And in the entire history of the planet Earth, there's probably only been a handful of guys like that, which he's one. So let's go through this magazine from 1994, Martial Arts Legends, a special Bruce Lee edition. But flipping through it, it's kind of fun to see the old school stuff. There you can buy a Bruce Lee statue, that's kind of cool. And you have, we're going to go over this, some of the ads in here are kind of funny. Master the power, pressure points. Yeah, for only $50.95, you can learn the mystical pressure points to render your opponent useless. So, I mean, there's just all kinds of great stuff, and it brings up a lot of memories for me growing up. You have to kind of keep into context of when this was. I believe this was right after his son died. And the first UFC started in 1993. So at that time period, a lot of people didn't know anything about what works in a real fight. And they thought that there's all these mystical oriental secrets. And now, of course, people are much more educated because the UFC is out there, so people have a much better idea of what actually works. But going through these ads, it's quite hilarious. I mean, some of them I'm sure are good products. Here they have mouth guards, they have head guards, they have gloves. I'm sure those are all good products. But some of the books, it's kind of funny to see. Self-Defense 100, and you see the guy there throwing a flying kick in a real-life practical self-defense situation. When in the world would you actually be doing a flying kick? Even the flying kicks that they have from Taekwondo, nowadays those are done mostly for show, but back a couple hundred years ago or before that, maybe they had a practical use. Supposedly those were developed to kick someone off a horse that they're riding. So you have some of this, the Dim Mak, Death Touch. And some of these are very good ads throughout this magazine. But something that I've always known, and maybe people know a little bit more because of the popularity of MMA, instead of looking towards some sort of exotic answer, some sort of secret, if they just joined their basic high school wrestling team, they did that for a few years, they would be so much better off in terms of practical self-defense and practical fighting. Now, I know it seems like I might be biased because here I am, I'm surrounded by a bunch of wrestling awards, and in 2 days, actually, I'm going to be inducted into the State Wrestling Hall of Fame. But you don't have to be to that level of wrestling. You don't have to be as good as me to be able to defend yourself and walk around with confidence in yourself. If people would just join their high school wrestling team. And what blows my mind is there's all these people that want to learn how to protect themselves and such, where you have free martial arts training through your schools, junior high through high school if you're in the United States. And you can do that for free. Now, I know the reason why people don't do it. Number one, it's simply way too hard for the average person. Even if you're going to be an athlete, it's so much easier to play basketball or do something like that. And it's not just that I'm biased towards wrestling. The reality is, if you want to learn to actually practical self-defense or how to fight, whether it's in the street or wherever, the sport martial arts are really the way to go, because the bottom line is, even though these books, some of these books and tapes, quite frankly, are garbage, but some of them, I'm sure, are very good. But it's very hard to learn techniques from a book or even a video. A video would be better than a book for showing techniques, but it's very hard to learn it that way, because the reality is, you have to drill these techniques at least 1,000 times, and then you have to get to the point where you can do them on an opponent that's resisting, an opponent that's trying not to let you get that technique. And that's why sports martial arts, whether you're talking about boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, even though some things are not the most practical because those are sports, the reality is you have to know how to do things. You have to have it committed to muscle memory where you can do it in your sleep. It's instinctual. You don't have to think if someone comes at you, well, what do I do? Like, even though I haven't wrestled for so many years, if someone attacks me or certain types of things, if someone shoots on me, I'm going to do what's the proper defense just out of sheer instinct. I don't even have to think about it. But a lot of people, and you can see here's some kind of cool stuff, like cool Taekwondo shoes and some kind of silly, I mean, some of these things might not be bad as collectibles. I wouldn't try and use them in a practical sense. But so many people, they get into, and this is something I heard Bruce Lee say. There's this quote that I heard from Bruce Lee many years ago. It was in print. I read it in an article. And I've never seen this quote anywhere else, but it sounds exactly like something Bruce Lee would actually say, so I'm sure it's legit. And I read this so many years ago, so I can't repeat it back to you exactly, so please forgive me for that. But he was talking about how so many people get into martial arts because it's exotic to them, this exotic oriental thing. And he said, if you're going to do martial arts, it should be about fighting in a very practical sense. If you want to do something exotic, then you should do flower arranging or something like that. That was the quote, and I've never seen that quote anywhere else, but it's so true. And looking at this magazine from 1994, it's a good picture. Lots of good photos in here, if you're a Bruce Lee fan or if you're just curious. But this is like a time capsule to me. 1994, like I said, you have to put into the state of the world of people's thinking. They weren't exposed to a lot of things, so they don't really know what works. And so many people, they would get into things, even things like Tai Chi, which is maybe not bad exercise for older people, but it's sure not going to help you out in a self-defense situation. But, oh, here's a photo that I quite like. I'm going to have to show you this. This is like almost has special meaning to me. See that? And look, what a sweet photo. I got to do one with my wife like this with our baby boy. That touches me as a father. Since becoming a father a year ago, anytime I see something in a movie that's about being a father or something, I'm really sappy over it. I'm a big softy about anything related to fatherhood or what it's like to be a dad, because now I have that special understanding. But, I mean, there's so many, the ads in this, they're really hilarious, but look at that great photo. But, getting back to Bruce Lee, well, this guy's legit Bill Wallace, and watching some of his stretching videos, actually, I found them on YouTube, they're excellent. But, getting back to Bruce Lee, like I said, realistically, I don't think of him as a Jesus figure, but the things this guy was able to accomplish and his philosophies, this guy was so far ahead of his time. And then the movies that he actually made and put out there into the world, even though it was only a few, and he never actually made a truly good film because he died too soon. His best movie in terms of quality is Enter the Dragon, and even that's a really bad knockoff of a James Bond movie. But why these movies are special and why they still exist today and people are still interested in watching them, it's all because of him, because he was that special. The way he looked, the way he moved. It's the first time we saw Asian martial arts presented in a movie in a somewhat realistic manner, or at least a believable manner where it's not pure fantasy. But I mean, growing up idolizing Bruce Lee and going through this magazine, it brings up so many great memories, seeing all these just truly awesome, inspiring photos. And like I said, it is important to have heroes. Even as an adult, as an adult, of course, you're more practical. And you know that every human being, every guy has his flaws. But, I mean, here's an ad too that is probably for actually a quality product. This is for a either videos or, VHS on how to stretch. I'm sure that's good information, but gone are the days of these shady martial arts guys that put out crappy products. I'm going to teach you how to knock people out just by using your energy. You don't even have to touch a man. Or you're going to do the dim mock death touch. The days of those con men getting away with that, those are long gone. And getting back to sports martial arts, whether you're talking about wrestling, kickboxing, boxing, what have you, it's much harder for people to pass themselves off as masters, because anytime, when in terms of a sport martial art, you're going to go out there in front of a crowd and people will know whether you're legit or not. You can't have these silly guys say, well, I have these deadly techniques that I can't use in the sport. People are much more keen to laughing those guys off because they know they're a joke. Check this out. That's his son. Boy, we got robbed of both these guys dying early. So many more good movies that would have been made if they had lived. It's like it really robbed the world of all this talent. And so many more exciting and inspiring films. I mean, let me just finish up this magazine. Here's another good shot. This guy, Bruce, when he got really lean in the last couple years of his life, he got shredded. Man, what a photogenic guy. That just made him so photogenic. And I actually think that, in a way, that was possibly a big influence on Sylvester Stallone when he made, say, Rocky III, and he got that shredded look. You didn't really see that on people much before that, but here's another good product like these guys stretching here. I like how it says here, age 35. It shows him doing the splits. Age 35, and he's doing the splits. 35, they make it sound like he's such an old guy. And if you're going to try and learn the splits from scratch, 35, especially for guys, to try and do the side splits like that, it's very difficult. But 35, as if he's some sort of old guy. It's kind of like I was watching Leave It to Beaver yesterday, and they had this episode on where this drunk guy knocks Wally's girlfriend into this fountain and her dress gets all wet, and then he has to take her home, and the girl's dad is all angry and he has to try and explain himself. And when Wally was telling his parents, Ward and June, the story, they said, did you ever see this guy before? And he goes, no, I've never seen him before, but he was a real old guy. He must have been 40. Some people get angry on this channel when I refer to other people in their 30s as middle-aged. Well, there you go. You heard it from Wally Cleaver. A real old person is age 40. So, but, like I said, some bringing up memories, and I like to remember too, instead of trying to debate whether, you know, this person was the best ever or whatever. I like to remember what was really good about someone, and certainly, even though I'm much more grown up about my attitude towards this, because definitely Bruce Lee. He's inspired a lot of people like me that I think I went on to do some good things. But he's also inspired a lot of wackos, kind of like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ inspires many of us to go on and do good things, but he also inspired some people that were complete nutcases too. They also have lots of haters, these guys. But I like to remember what's good about this guy. So much stuff from his philosophies, from the movies he made, whether he's the best fighter to ever walk the face of the earth. You know, I'm not going to get into all that. And certainly now, people have access to good training through MMA gyms. There's an MMA gym in almost every city in the world at this point. Every at least moderate-sized city in the world, I think, has one because of the popularity. But also, like, all these people, like, that tried to fool you with their silly Asian fighting techniques. And going back to the exotic factor, as someone that's spent a lot of time in Asia of my life, the more time you spend there, the less exotic it seems and the sillier things seem. So that always amuses me, but I have like some of the highest respect too for just these high school wrestlers just having to go out there and test themselves and do that. So hopefully we've had a good remembrance of Bruce Lee. I've talked about the fake guys. We can all remember those. If you've ever looked at a men's magazine back in the day or the ads in comic books, you probably know what I'm talking about. The ads were all well done and very amusing, but some very sketchy stuff. So go ahead and drop a comment down below and let me know what you think.